Yeah, hey, so I'm Peter, and I'm the Mighty Eagle at Rovio, better known for Angry Birds. And I guess I was supposed to talk about branding and branding secrets and like all of that, so I'll try to do that. And yeah, I thought I'd start with a bit of background to kind of like Rovio and Angry Birds. So maybe not all of you heard kind of like what we've done and all that. But this year is actually kind of like a special year for us because it'll be 5 years since the original Angry Birds came out. So that happened 11th of December 2009. And yeah, this year in December we're celebrating our 5th birthday. So yeah, 5th birthday. But of course we branded that, so it's the birthday. And yeah, we'll have a huge party, and you're all invited. So we'll kind of like send more details about that later. But if you look back, of course, Rovio as a company, we actually started making games way before Angry Birds. We actually started back in 2003, and Rovio got started out of a game making competition that I organized. I was working for HP at the time, and 2003, for those who kind of like were around in the industry and kind of like all that. So that was, of course, way before the iPhone happened, before Android happened. That was when the guys from Nokia, so our like fellow countrymen in Finland, they were still making phones. So kind of like those were the days. But yeah, anyway, so they had just come out with their first smartphones, and then we organized this competition to make the best possible mobile multiplayer game. And Niklas and two of his friends, they were students at the Aalto University, and they took part in this competition. They created a game called King of the Cabbage World, which you probably never heard of because it never kind of like came out under that name. It was actually later, it was published by our friends from Digital Chocolate under Mole Wars title, so that was kind of like what happened with that game. But anyway, they created a game called King of the Cabbage World for this competition. They won the competition, and I was on the jury, so I have to say that the jury did a great job in picking, that game as the winner. And then Niklas and his friends came to me after that, and as I said, they were students at the Aalto University, and then I said, okay, like, we won the competition, now what? And then told the guys that I've always been a big believer in doing, things you love. And it was very clear that they loved not only playing games, but making games. So I said, okay, why don't you start a company to make games? It's easy. And yeah, okay, turned out to be not so easy. They actually ended up, started Rovio in 2003 and then made 51 games. So it took 51 games and 6 years, and then Angry Birds. So not kind of like an overnight success story. But I guess that, like people always say that, okay, yeah, it's easy, you guys are lucky and like all of that. And I think that, yeah, sure, we're kind of like lucky in the same way as, successful athletes, that they're lucky because they train a lot. Something to do with that. So we made a lot of games and we learned a lot. And I think that if you look at the kind of like the games business today, especially mobile, it's dominated by companies that got started about that same time, or people who got into the business like 2003 and thereabouts. I mean, if you look at the guys from King, they started their company back then. Ilkka and the guys at Supercell, they also they got started at the same time. So a lot of the people who have been training a lot are now very successful in this business. So I guess it has something to do with kind of like learning there. So we, if nothing else, we learned a lot from making the 51 games before Angry Birds. But it was, of course, a very, very different business back then, and you had to be good pals with kind of like the carriers or the people making phones if you wanted to get your game distributed. So it wasn't as easy as it's today that you just like create a game and you put it in the app store and kind of like anybody can download it. So very, very different like industry dynamic. And I guess that it's this kind of like golden rule of venture capital is very true, that like go something like too early, too late. So timing is really important. And if you look back, 2003 probably wasn't like the smartest time to start a company to make mobile games. But yeah, then if you look at kind of like the situation, way back then, it was very different. So the difficulty was really in getting the distribution. So that was like super difficult, and the dynamic of the industry was very different. So back then, you had companies running around and talking about how many games they did. So nobody cared if you made good games, but it was all about, like if you were EA or Gameloft or one of these big guys, you're always boasting that, okay, this year we did 500 games, and then the following year they did 700. And the reason why that was an important metric, because if you were one of those big guys, then you went to the carriers, you went to the handset makers, and then they just, like had a few people there in charge of games and say, okay, how many games do you want to do this year? 30. Okay, here's 30 games, have fun. So nobody cared about the quality or anything like that, because the distribution was very, very controlled. So then, of course, the App Store, iPhone App Store and all of that, changed. And now the situation is very different. So now, two men and a dog can create a game and get it out there. So it's not like the distribution is not difficult. And that's actually then, also the topic of my talk today. It's all about branding. So, okay, now we have the complete opposite challenge, that it used to be difficult to get the distribution to happen, to get the game out there. Now that part is super easy. I mean, you create the game, you put it in the App Store. But what has become super, super difficult is, of course, that now anybody can do that. So that means that you have not only like, a few games, but you have hundreds of thousands of games, millions of apps competing for the attention. So, if you're then, you make the game, but so what? I mean, like, if nobody knows about the greatest game ever that you just made, then, it's not, it's not particularly great, because nobody will play it. So it really becomes very, very important not only to make great games, but also do a great job in getting kind of like the message out. And I think that's something that I always say, that if you're serious about making games, you need to be very serious about marketing, you need to be very serious about branding. And I hear a lot of kind of like developers telling me that, yeah, but we don't care, we just want to make great games and we don't like care about any of the rest, like, go away and let us make our games, which, is perfectly fine, but you need to figure out then, one way or another, that either yourself or somebody will help you with kind of like getting the message out there, so that people will actually know about the greatest game ever that you just made. And if you look at kind of like what we did with Angry Birds, so I always, or a lot of times I hear that, oh yeah, but like in 2009 it was like very easy. Actually, not true. It was already a very crowded market back in 2009 as well. So it's not like you kind of like made a game, you put it in the App Store, and like everybody kind of like went and downloaded it. So it's not kind of like that different today. Of course, there are even more games, even more apps out there now than in 2009, but it's still like same fundamental challenge, that how do you stand out? How do you make sure that people know about the kind of like great game, the great app that you made? And if you look at kind of like early days of Angry Birds, so kind of like the first times that we realized that we were like onto something. So of course, I mean, we really tried to make a hit game. I mean, the whole like company strategy, 12 people back then, was all about that, okay, let's keep making games until we have a hit, like on the iPhone, let's then take it everywhere. And not everywhere meaning like Android, all the other platforms, and also other non-game areas. And with Angry Birds, during the development, we already realized that things were going pretty well, because developers spend a lot of time playing the game. So that's why it took all of like 8 months, which, okay, now doesn't feel like that long, but it took 8 months to create the original Angry Birds. Cost about 100K, so like not super expensive. But again, then another like very good indication of having kind of like a successful game was when Niklas went home for Christmas, and then see his parents, and then as you always do, he was showing the game to his mother, and like with the 51 games before, okay, here, check out this game, and then his mom took a look at the phone and okay, yeah, very nice, and he got the phone back. But with Angry Birds, he didn't get the phone back for all Christmas, so we kind of like realized that okay, Niklas' mom never plays any games, played Angry Birds all Christmas. Yeah, we're probably like onto something here, and we were. So then we asked friends and family to kind of like download the game. So this was back in 2009, Finland, home of Nokia, not too many iPhones. So I guess you could say that we used word of mouth marketing and viral marketing. So we told friends and family that go get the game, and then that was enough to get to #1 in Finland. So it's like not like rocket science. But I think that that's also, of course, what you should do is that at least like tell everybody about your game. So of course friends and family and all of that, but to like really see if you can get some kind of like word of mouth going and some virality going. And with Angry Birds, if you think about it, it's actually we haven't done like particularly like great job if you look at like social features and things like that in Angry Birds. I mean, even 5 years later, we don't have like amazing social features in the original game. But one thing that we have there is very good kind of like word of mouth marketing built in, because the brand itself begs for a question. So I mean, always when you hear about Angry Birds the first time, if you think about it kind of like when you first did, it's a brand that begs for a question. Why are the birds angry? And once you ask that question, we're stuck in your head forever. So like that's why 9 out of 10 Americans know the brand, 93% of the Chinese population know the brand, because I mean every day I get asked that, like even today I was asked that okay, why are the birds angry? And then it's very easy that okay, of course, because the green pigs steal their eggs. And then like again, like you get in the story and people will not forget, oh yeah, Angry Birds, green pigs, all of that. So I think that again, when we talk about kind of like engineering, these kind of things, it's not always about the technology, but there's a lot kind of like in the brand, brand name itself. There's a lot that you can do there. So really kind of like think about it and test these kind of things. That does your game, does your app, does the brand have that kind of capability? That does it create a question? Does it get stuck in your head forever? So I mean, like it's not about technology, but it is about those kind of things. So really kind of like think about that. And then of course another thing in our particular case, and why I like have the character there on the only slide I use. I don't do slides typically because I'm a big believer in that if you know what you're talking about, then like you don't need like a massive amount of slides to confuse people. So hopefully I kind of like managed to explain what I'm kind of like thinking here. But anyway, so of course for us the brand name, but also then kind of like the powerful characters. And this is something that actually, if you look at Angry Birds, we actually started the development not with the game, but with the characters. So the whole project started when Jaakko Iisalo, one of our game designers, was pitching a new game idea that featured the birds. Okay, nobody understood the game idea and like the mechanic and all of that, but everybody immediately fell in love with the birds and said that we have to build a game around those birds. And then we built the game, we added the pigs, very late in the process we added the slingshot that now everybody knows. But it wasn't like that we had a game and then added the characters, but we started with the characters and then we built the first game around that. And of course now we built many games around the same characters, around the birds, around the bad piggies. We introduced more birds, all of that, so we built out the world. And we actually, in the background last 4 years, we have built a lot of depth into kind of like the Piggy Island where the birds and the pigs hang out, and the stories, the characters. We put more depth into those through our animation studio, our animations, our tunes, Angry Birds tunes. The first season we got 3 billion views in the first year, stuff like that. But I mean, like again, it's really about kind of like the whole thing, not just one game, but really building the world and kind of like thinking a bit kind of like longer term with that. Then another thing that I think is very important, and if you then look at kind of like your game, your app, and all the hundreds of thousands of others out there, you really need to think about not only, I mean, of course, it's a given that you have to build a great experience, you have to build a great game. I mean, that kind of like goes without saying. So no matter what you do on the marketing, if you don't have a great product, I mean, like, good luck with that. So it is a combination of many things when you look at, for example, the success of Angry Birds. So it's not just, okay, great game, great marketing, great characters, but it's always like a combination of many, many things. So it's not like, okay, do this one thing and you'll be successful. You need to do many things. And that's something that's also important to keep in mind. But I'm a big believer in doing things differently. So really thinking very, very hard then, you know, like about you know, your game, your app, and the marketing, the whole thing, the whole experience, that how do you make it different? How do you make it stand out? And if you can like start with that, you know, doing things differently already, kind of like just because it's different, that adds, in many cases, tremendous value. And I think that that's, again, it's a very kind of like human kind of like trait and character that we want to conform. We want to do what everybody else is doing. And this is also true for companies, that you kind of like think that you have to do what everybody else is doing. And that's kind of like the totally wrong approach. I mean, if you want to be successful with your game or app, you want to be different, you want to stand out. And I mean, that's also, you know, like when you see me at, you know, event like this or anywhere, red hoodie. Okay, how many people here wear red? Okay, not that many. I mean, this is like a bit more like casual, but many of these events, I mean, I was at this New Economy Summit in Japan, 2,000 very serious Japanese dudes in dark suits. And I get there, red hoodie, and then they're kind of like the organizers ask me that, okay, is there anything they can help me with? And I say, yeah, actually, I heard that your prime minister is coming here. I would like to meet with him. And they're like, oh, no, you know, like, it's a prime minister, like, you can't do that. And I say, yeah, but I figured that, you know, like have a few things that I would like to share with him. And then they were like, okay, there's this like photo shoot thing, you know, you could go there. And then there's like 50 of these Japanese people in dark suits and me in my red hoodie. So then, you know, like Prime Minister Abe walks in, and then the first thing he sees, oh, there's this like crazy guy, or he didn't know that I'm crazy by then, but he learned that later. But anyway, so then he walks up and, okay, yeah, you know, and then I say, hey, I'm Peter from Rovio, and I heard about third arrow in Abenomics, you know, the structural reform and educational reform. We could actually fix education in Japan. And then we kind of like took it from there. But again, because of the red hoodie, it was very easy for him to kind of like zoom in that, okay, there's all these like Japanese guys in dark suits, and oh, there's like some interesting person there wearing a red hoodie. So kind of, but this is again, you know, the same thing that people go to the app store and then they look at like all these apps, and they, you know, again, what we did when we brought out Angry Birds is that we actually did 30 or 40 designs for the app icon itself, and then we looked at it, okay, what does it look like with a red bird at the top of the app store, you know, of the download list. And of course, I mean, it looked very good, and it looked very good for like 2.5 years or whatever. But anyway, so you know, like the thing there is that how do you then do the same kind of effect that like the Prime Minister Abe effect, that walking into the room, okay, I'll go and talk to that guy. So you know, how do you make the same thing happen in the app store, that okay, people zoom in there and okay, yeah, I'm gonna check this out. And of course, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, Apple featuring, Google featuring, you know, like all kinds of things that you can do to kind of like make that happen. But of course, they can't feature everything. So if your marketing strategy is about getting featured by Apple, you know, it might or might not happen. So again, you might have to do a bit more. So how can you stand out from like all of those hundreds of thousands of other applications? And I think that that's again, and I don't have like a simple answer that do this, wear a red hoodie and, you know, like do crazy things. But that's kind of like the approach that we've always had at Rovio, that let's do things differently. Let's make sure that we stand out in everything we do, you know, like company level, personal level, application level, all levels, that okay, let's make sure that we don't do what everybody else is doing. And again, very easy to say, but very few people actually do that. So I think that there's kind of like, if there's one thing that I think that you should really think about is this, that okay, how do you stand out? And then, you know, strong brand, strong characters, all of that, it doesn't hurt. But those are kind of like things that, you know, it's not like this. You need to kind of like obviously work on that. But yeah, so then we got the game out, we got to #1 in Finland, then same thing happened in Sweden. Apple realized there's something going on, we got featured in the UK, US, went to #1 and stayed there. And then that actually brings up another very important thing, that then when we started to get some traction in 2010, like in the spring, summer, don't remember like the exact day, but that was the first time that within Rovio and then also outside said that, okay, we are going to go for 100 million downloads. And then like everybody's like, hey, Peter, you're crazy. I mean, only Tetris has had 100 million downloads and it took them like 20 years. There's no way you're going to get like 100 million downloads. And then we also shared the same with like EA and the guys from Singa who were like super happy at the time because they were like doing okay. And then they were all telling us that, hey, yeah, you guys are crazy. There's like no way you're going to get 100 million downloads, that, you know, like get out of here. And then first 12 months of Angry Birds, we got 50 million downloads and we're like super happy that, hey, this is amazing. And then Christmas 2010 happened. We added 25 million over Christmas. And then in March 2011, we hit 100 million. So in like 15 months, we got to what I thought was actually like crazy ambitious goal myself. But it just shows that it wasn't kind of like that crazy and it wasn't even that ambitious. But I think that that's another thing that, okay, differentiate, really think about like how you stand out. But then the other very important thing, set crazy ambitious goals. I think that's super important. And what was actually very good with setting the 100 million like goal and then achieving that super fast, I mean much faster than I thought we'd do that myself. But the great thing about then, you know, getting there is that after that, everything is easy. So now we're like the team, you know, then got into this mode that, yeah, of course, like whatever we do, we'll get 100 million downloads. You don't like think about it. And the thing, of course, 100 million downloads is a lot. But then, you know, like when you kind of like set the bar there and you kind of like get used to it. So then it's like, oh yeah, of course, I mean, like we'll do a new Angry Birds game, 100 million downloads happens. Okay, it's good and bad, so you know, also have to make sure that people understand that you actually like have to work for it and it's not like automatic. But if you have a strong brand, it can become almost automatic. So that's also the power of brands, obviously. That now everybody knows the brand, and if there's a new Angry Birds game, more likely than not, people will like check it out. So that's something that I also big believer in, kind of like setting super ambitious goals. And when I get asked about, you know, the success of Angry Birds, I always kind of like then say that it's actually like, you know, I'll share the secret with you that it's like very, very easy. That, you know, if you look at Rovio, we have more than 800 people at Rovio, and they all know how to walk on water. And then people look at me like, okay, what do you mean like walk on water? And what I mean is that after we achieved 100 million downloads, then people started believing that, yeah, of course we'll get, you know, to 100 million. You know, so walking on water, it's like easy. And of course then, you know, like part of the secret there, I'm being from Finland, most, or not maybe most of the year, but many months of the year, walking on water is actually super easy because the water is frozen. So, you know, it's not that difficult. Don't need to be like biblical or anything. But I think that there's another like important lesson in there that, you know, you take the 100 million goal, which feels like, okay, impossible. And also like the walking on water, you think that it's like super difficult. But then the thing here is that actually it might not be that difficult. You just like think about, okay, how do you do it differently? And if the water is frozen, it's like super easy. So again, like the 100 million, walking on water, all of that, my point here is that there's typically always a way, but instead of trying to kind of like do the walking on water thing in summer, you know, like, okay, maybe you do it in the winter, and then there's a lesson there that, okay, timing is very critical. So like think about when you do whatever kind of like you need to do in your marketing. But then if you look at kind of like the business today in games, so of course, I mean, everything has now moved very much to free to play, which again presents its own challenges. And I mean, that's also been not like super easy for us to kind of like switch our thinking into that from kind of like premium. So again, we always learn. and we're doing kind of like better and better there. But I think one thing, I'm of course a big believer in brands and branding. And if you look at Angry Birds, I mean, we now have over 2.5 billion downloads, so you know it's a good start. But we didn't get there by paying massive amounts for user acquisition or installs. So we haven't done any of that, and we really built this by doing our marketing differently, by building a strong brand. And I think that if you look at what is happening in our industry now, that you have a lot of people now who, okay, and those of you who have apps and games out there know that if you are like buying installs, it can be pretty expensive. I mean, it used to be like $2, now you can pay between 5 and 10 for like one install. So then you have to have kind of like pretty good monetization in place if you want to make some money, or you have to have like super deep pockets. And of course, some people do, but it's also kind of like led to the fact that now if you look at some of the really advanced markets, take Japan, I mean, it's all about TV campaigns and like all of that. So again, things that you typically do to build brand, but it's just because of the the kind of like user acquisition costs have really gone up like a lot, because there's a lot of people competing for like those same users. So I really think that long term you have to build brand, otherwise you're not going to like survive. It's going to be like way too expensive to acquire these users. And that's also like what we do at Rovio. We're not building like a game for 100 days, but we're building a brand for 100 years. So that's also like now we're done almost 5 years of Angry Birds, so it's kind of like super early. I mean, Hello Kitty is celebrating 40 years this year. Mickey Mouse came out in like 1928. So again, there are like some good examples of these character-based franchises that are, very kind of like long-lived, and they're like still around. And then also if you look at kind of like building the brand and what we've done, we have done not only games. We bought an animation studio early on with like 20 people, grown that now to the biggest animation studio in Northern Europe. So we have our own like animated series, actually several of those. Then we also expanded into kind of like consumer products and licensing. So again, all about like building the Angry Birds branded experiences in all forms and shapes for our fans. So kind of like the Rovio model has been very much about kind of like fans and brand, and then kind of like making sure that we offer a lot of different Angry Birds branded experiences for our fans. So like buy the toy, download the game, drink the soft drink, download the game, play the game, buy the drink, go to the park, like so all of that. So we are building lifestyle. We want our brand to be everywhere and always trigger more downloads, more play. We want to have our fans spend as much time with us, with our games, with our animation, with our toys, with like the various Angry Birds experiences. So really thinking about it very differently from again just making a game. And this is a very different model from like a lot of the pure play like games companies out there. And it's not necessarily a model for everybody, but that's kind of like how we have been doing kind of like our business, and yeah, probably you can learn something from kind of like what we've done, but it's again, we've been doing things differently. I mean, we're told not to do toys because hey, we're a games company and what do we don't know about toys? And that's probably true, but we could find partners that know about toys and have been making toys for more than 100 years. So I think that's another kind of like important thing, that if you don't know how to do something, then there are people who do, and then partnering is of course very powerful. So that's what we've been doing. We have hundreds of partners now working on various Angry Birds things, everything from toys to parks to drinks. So that's something that again we've been doing to kind of like build our brand. Yeah, and I could probably keep talking for like hours and hours, but as we are in kind of like the business of interactive entertainment, probably get more out of this if we open up for like questions and comments. So if there's anything you want to ask or say, now's your chance. And we have like 2 microphones, I guess, so they're like recording. So if you could go step up to the microphone and ask, that would be great.
Quick question.
Sure.
So for monetization, right? I have every Angry Birds game on every device at my house. My kids love it. I've loved it all over the years. I haven't paid a penny for any of it. So at what point should developers, everybody here, basically expect monetization? Is it from plush toys?
Yeah. Let's say again, there's no one right answer for the monetization. I mean, for us, we don't monetize super aggressively in our games. But yeah, I mean, we make a bit of money there, obviously, as well. But if you look at our business last year, 47% was actually in licensing, so physical consumer products in various forms and shapes. And that's kind of like one model that works really well for us. But to make that work, you then of course you need to have a strong brand, and that means that you need to have some hundreds of millions, and in our case 2.5 billion games out there, so everybody knows the brand and they'll buy the plush toys and they'll drink the drink and all of that. So it's a different model. Okay, then if you look at again take Gung Ho or Supercell or King or the list goes on, pure games, and they monetize very aggressively in the games, and they're actually doing a great job, and they're making a lot more money than we are for the moment. So again, I think that's also like a very good model, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's very different from kind of like a brand play, that they're not necessarily building brand. I mean, if I ask in this room, how many people know about Puzzle and Dragons? Okay, actually, I'm surprised that there are quite a few, or not that many. I would expect that this audience would be more like into Puzzle and Dragons. But I mean, Puzzle and Dragons is one of the biggest games out there. I mean, they make $1 billion a year, so they monetize very nicely, and they have like $40 million or so globally, most of them in Japan. But again, the point here is that if I ask how many here know about Angry Birds? So yeah, like a few, or everybody, pretty much. So I actually did the same. I was talking to 600 students in Finland, and I asked them the same question, and then out of 600, one guy knew about Puzzle and Dragons. So kind of the thing here, what I'm trying to say is that very different approach. It's not about building the brand, but it's like monetizing very efficiently or out of that one game, and they make $1 billion a year. I mean, that's like fantastic. But they're not building necessarily a brand for 100 years. So the approach that we are taking is different, and I'm not saying that it's better or worse, but it's different. And that was kind of like the point that I was trying to make earlier, that we always try to do things differently. And that's also why I can't say that, okay, like sell a lot of toys or, like monetize very aggressively in your game, that you have to figure it out yourselves, but don't do exactly what Supercell or King or Gung Ho or what we are doing. I mean, again, you're probably not going to be very successful by copying other people. So I think that it's always good if you come up with something different. And then what that different is, I don't know. It's basically depends on what you're doing, and you have to kind of like figure it out yourself. Yeah.
So you guys made like 50 games before the success of Angry Birds. When did you decide to switch to becoming or pivot your company to becoming a branding company?
We actually sort of kind of like the thinking there. I mean, and we made a lot of games, and we also we did a lot of like work for hire, and we kind of like learned that, okay, if you are in that kind of like work for hire kind of like business, it's not much fun. You don't make a lot of money, and it's like go from one project to another, and it's like it's not what we wanted to do. So we kind of like learned that. And then another thing then that we really we started looking at. I mean, we had kind of like one more shot, so if we wouldn't have been successful with Angry Birds, probably wouldn't be here, and the company would be gone. So I mean, it's always, if you have these like near-death experiences, you kind of like have to get your act together. So we really analyzed hundreds of like hit games and like hits in general, and trying to understand that what does it take to make a hit game. And then the kind of like thinking from very early was that, okay, let's keep making games. Then when we have a hit, because we know how difficult it is, that then we go all in. So like we throw everything we have, the little we have, you know, at that and make it as big as possible. So for us, it meant that, okay, let's take it to all different, you know, other platforms. We took it to WebOS that was around, and we took Android and like all of that. And then not only kind of like different mobile environments, but we actually wanted to be on all screens. So we kind of like then took it to, of course, like PCs and Macs, and then smart TVs and like everywhere. And then once we had that, then we, okay, saw some traction, so we got 50 million downloads the first year, which was like a very big number back then. That then, okay, we can actually use the power of the brand to go into toys. So we started with the plush toys, and then we sold a few of those. And then we kind of like took it from there. But we, I think that it was kind of like built in, and then we also had this kind of like craziness that we kind of like we weren't afraid of going into new areas. So again, you know, we went into animation, went into a lot of different areas, and even though people were telling us that, hey, you know, what do you guys know? And I think that that's another thing, that don't listen to all the advice that you're getting. And I mean, the same thing goes for what I'm saying, that, you know, like you have to think for yourself. And I think that that's again, only you can know, you know, kind of like what's best for your business, or hopefully you know. And I think that for us it was really kind of like very much built in that we want to take Angry Birds everywhere, and that's kind of like the mission we're still on, that you know, we want to make Angry Birds as big as possible. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I met you earlier. I don't know if you remember, but
yeah.
Hi again. Yeah. I was going to ask, where did you get your $100,000 to invest? Did you get that from investors, or was that pooled collectively?
Yeah. So I mean, as a Rovio, so we've been around since 2003. So the company had ups and downs. So again, we had that much money left, and it was like friends and family and stuff like that. But yeah, it cost about 100K to make Angry Birds, and it was actually you know, like things like mortgaging houses and stuff like that. So it's like pretty tough. So again, no like massive surprises kind of like there. But it's again, I mean, like if you're an entrepreneur and if you're doing a startup, then, you know, crazy people do crazy things, and if you wouldn't be crazy, you probably wouldn't be doing that, and you would be working for have like a real job at some corporation. but yeah, I mean, that's not what we're about. So yeah.
I was also going to ask, and as far as business development goes, it sounds like kind of like just what I'm getting from you. You have like certain business savvy. Mm-hmm. I wonder who is leading the business development on your team. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, so I'm kind of like my title is like Mighty Eagle, so that actually describes my job pretty well as well. So my job is really to kind of like worry about us doing big enough things, you know, like fast enough. So that's something that's super important. But also then I think that if you look at, and that's one area, I mean, I think that if you look at Rovio, I mean, we're like 800 people or a bit over, and that's one area where we could do a lot better. So I mean, it's again, that's also one thing that I think is very important, that if you look at Rovio, and I think that any successful company, that we're never happy. So if you ask me about business development, I think that we could do so much better, and I'm like not at all happy with kind of like what we kind of like achieved and how it works, you know, like currently. So I think that we can do a lot better. But then of course, if you then start looking at, okay, we haven't done like too shabby, but I think that we can do much better, and that's also kind of like part of the culture, that if you ask a Rovio person about like our organization or like anything, they will tell you that, hey, it's totally sucks, because that's kind of like the attitude, that everybody just wants to make things better. So we're like never kind of like happy with the status quo, and that's something that's very important. But yeah, then business development, we have a dedicated team that really then looks at what we can do, you know, the biggest thing we can do with our partners, customers and all that. So we always try to kind of like challenge ourselves to kind of like think about, okay, how can we make it 10 times bigger? Not like double, but really like do kind of like crazy big things. And that's kind of like, I think, one part of the kind of like the success of Angry Birds, that we we haven't been afraid of doing crazy things, even when people tell us that, hey, you can't do that because, you know, what do you know? So don't listen to people too much would be my advice.
Would and when you were first starting, so was that you that was leading? Like, were you thinking about it as a business? Like, I'm talking about like the early stages.
No, not really. And I think that this is also one thing that is, and this is actually for companies, but especially like when you make games and or any kind of like creative product or service, that I think that very rarely is it like one guy. It really is like I mentioned, like Jaakko Iisalo, you know, he drew the bird characters, but then like again the team built the game, and then like you know, the pigs were introduced very late in the process because people couldn't figure out like how to play the game, so we added the slingshot. And it's not like you know, one guy that okay, you know, like just okay, this is what you do, but it is a team effort. And I think that also goes for the business development and for everything. That I think that kind of like the most important thing, if you look at kind of like and I mean there's this kind of like, you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and you know, I think that the culture is super important. I mean, you can have like the best strategy in the world, but if you like have a crap culture in the company, then like it doesn't really help. And I think that for us it's really been that we haven't been kind of like afraid of doing new things, and then also not afraid of having some very like heated discussions. So it's okay to kind of like disagree, but then once we kind of like get our act together and we just go and do stuff. So you know, and I could talk about the culture thing for like hours, but I think it's super important that you create that kind of environment where, you know, people are not afraid of doing things and they are not afraid of questioning things. And then, you know, the example, if you ask one of our guys that what they think, they will tell you that everything pretty much sucks. And it doesn't mean that that's, you know, like, you know, it doesn't mean that like everything totally sucks, but it's the attitude. I mean, want to make things better.
Thanks.
Sure. Okay.
Just wanted to, first of all, I've loved the game since the beginning. I tried the free versions, then happily purchased the HD versions, and then loved the progression in the games. Seeing also the mashups with Star Wars and with Transformers now, I think that's great. And my first question is with regards to more of this extension of the brand by bringing together other popular brands. So that would be the first one I'd pose to you. And then the second question, though, has to do with going back to the original mechanics, because when I bought the game, you know, whatever the price point happened to be, it was $4.99 originally for the HD.
Yeah, for the the iPad.
And I bought it. Obviously, I based my decision on trying out the free version, but it was a great mechanic. I could, you know, just enjoy many hours of gameplay. And then when I see the new versions, wonderful. This new type of mechanic seems a bit more twitch-based, a little more twitchy, where you're shooting as you're progressing, like a side-scroller type thing. But the underlying notion of the in-app purchases, and I experienced the same thing with the Clash of Clans, Samurai Siege, and all these other games. It feels like work after a while.
Yes.
You know, and that I'm basically, if I'm not a whale, I'm basically fodder for the whales. So to me, I you know, uninstall those games after a while because it becomes very much like that. Do you see yourself going back to the way you did things before? So that would be the second question.
Yeah, very good, very good. So I love those topics. But I think, and actually, if you look at like Star Wars, to start with that, so it's actually, it's all about like love, you know. So we have like lots of people at Rovio who love Star Wars, like huge fans. So it was kind of like a no-brainer that we really wanted to do something around Star Wars. So then what we did is that we just kind of like, actually we came here to San Francisco, went to talk to the Lucas guys and say, okay, we would like to do this game. And then we had like all this like beautiful art and like all these mock-ups of like Angry Birds Star Wars, what the game would look like. And then, you know, turned out that they had a lot of Angry Birds fans on their side. So it's kind of like, again, like getting the fans together and like, yeah, of course, we have to do this. And then we brought Hasbro to the table because they had like all the rights for the toys and all of that stuff. And it was actually, I was actually meeting with the guys at the Presidio here like this week, and it's good to kind of like be back in that same meeting room where we first kind of presented the idea. But it was like fun that we then invited the Hasbro guys there, and we said, okay, we'd like to launch this game. I think it's probably like in March, and we launched in November, so it was pretty short, and told us that, hey, like there's no way we can get toys out in November, like it's like no way. But actually there was a way, and we got those out, and it was like very successful launch. But I think that the most important thing there, it wasn't that we did kind of like some kind of careful business calculation that, okay, if we combine Angry Birds and Star Wars, we'll make like billions or something. I mean, we just like, I mean, the way we decided that, hey, it would be like really, really cool to do something around Star Wars. And then if you play, like the Angry Birds Star Wars games, so we now have 2 of them, you can kind of like see in the games that the people who built Angry Birds Star Wars, they actually watched the movies probably like too many times. So there's like all this like attention to detail and like stuff that you will only like understand if you actually are a fan. But it doesn't mean that even if you're not a huge like Star Wars fan, you will still enjoy, because like great games. But I think that it's again, it really started with kind of like the love for Star Wars, and then kind of like the other way around, that it turned out that we had a lot of Angry Birds fans on their side, and then it was actually super easy to kind of like get all of that built. Then of course we had like the lawyers involved, and that took a bit longer, but I mean we still got that done. So that's kind of like how we decided to do that. And yeah, I mean same like with Transformers and yeah, I mean those are kind of like the ones that we've announced. But anyway, so really again, and in the Transformers case, we wanted to bring back like the experience from the 80s, so again, not like necessarily like, okay, take the latest movies and all that, but like the original Transformers, like cartoon. And I mean, when you start the Transformers game, it starts with this like, and I think I really love the kind of like the animation, all that, like it's bringing back, like the memories of Transformers, that you can like have this not so great quality, animation, and the cartoon is a bit cheesy, and it has the 80s music and style, and like Angry Birds, Transformers, like it's this kind of thing that we want to kind of like bring back and kind of like put people on this like nostalgia trip. So it's really kind of like for kind of like the love of the brands there. But then, yeah, great question about like the move to free to play, and I think that as an industry we can do a lot better. I think that we can build better experiences. So I don't think that we are anywhere near where we need to be with free to play. I mean, free to play is a great model because it allows people to kind of like try like every game out there, and if you don't like it, it didn't cost you anything except the time, which it's a good start. But then I think that yeah, and definitely, I mean, if you look at what we've been doing at Rovio, I mean, our first like kind of like truly free to play Angry Birds game was Angry Birds Go. We brought that out in December last year. I don't think that it was a fantastic game when we first launched it. We got a lot of feedback, that okay, how can you charge, I don't remember, about like $50 for a card or like, crazy stuff, which, not a good idea, and I don't know, why we did that, but we're not doing that anymore, and we made Angry Birds Go a much better game. So actually today we announced, team-based multiplayer for Angry Birds Go, and there's a lot more coming. So the experience there has gotten a lot better, but it's still not like good enough. And if I look at a lot of the other like free-to-play games, yeah, you're absolutely right that it can start feel like work, and that's not ideal, to say the least. But the problem right now, if you look at kind of like then the model of like paid downloads and premium, is that market has like disappeared. Nobody, but like it's very few people pay to download a game. Very few. I mean, it used to be that you could do a lot of paid downloads, but not anymore. I mean, like with Angry Birds Space, I think we did like in a couple of days we did 50 million, and they were like most of them were paid. So that was kind of like very good, but it doesn't happen anymore. And it's actually similar. I mean, when we looked at, so first we were like iOS and WebOS and all of that, and then we kind of like brought out the original Angry Birds for Android. And then we looked at kind of like the Android App Store or the Play Store nowadays, and then we realized that, hey, nobody here is paying for any of the content. So let's just make it free with ads, because we're not going to get any paid downloads anyway. And we did, and then of course we got a lot of downloads. We got hundreds of millions of downloads, but we also got a few people complaining that, hey, I would pay, if you could do like, this without ads. And then we actually enable people to pay to remove the ads. And guess what? Nobody pays to remove the ads. There's lots of people who will tell you that, yeah, I would pay if I could remove the ads. And then like on the planet, there's probably like 5 people who paid. I mean, it's like super low number. So I think that if you look at kind of like the state of the market and look at free to play and all that, I mean, that's where the market is. That's where we've gone. And I think that we just need to live with the model to make it better. So I think that you can make fantastic games, again, in this free to play area. And definitely, I mean, if you ask me and like look at what we've done at Rovio, we're definitely still learning. We can do a lot better job. And like if you look at Go, you look at Angry Birds Epic, and you look at Transformers now, we've gotten better. But I think that we will do a lot better, with the next games. And it's just, that's the way the market works right now, that it definitely is all about free to play. And then there's some niche, like premium content, but that's very, very niche, and it's becoming smaller and smaller. So at least for the time being, I don't see that changing. So yeah. And I guess I'm out of time, so do we have time for one more question or not? No? Okay, cool. Okay, but I'll be around, so if somebody has a question, I'm more than happy to kind of like talk about that. But yeah, thank you.